The first contraction seized Nalani's body during the Alpha's blessing, her gasp swallowed by the ceremonial drums that pounded in rhythm with the full moon's pull. She pressed a hand to her swollen belly, feeling the tightening that had been building for hours finally crescendo into something undeniable. Around her, pack members swayed in ritual formation, their wolves close to the surface as moonlight bathed the clearing in silver-white luminescence. She needed to slip away, quietly, before anyone noticed. But as another contraction gripped her, this one sharper, more insistent, her knees buckled. The she-wolf beside her, someone Nalani had grown up with, someone she'd called friend, stepped deliberately away, leaving her to collapse onto the damp earth. The drums stopped. Silence crashed over the clearing like a physical force. Nalani looked up through the curtain of her dark hair, meeting dozens of eyes that reflected moonlight with an eerie, unified coldness. At the center of the gathering, Beta Marcus turned from the ceremonial fire, his expression shifting from irritation to something far more dangerous: recognition. "The time has come," he announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd been waiting for this moment. Just as the elders prophesied. Nalani's wolf whimpered inside her, pressed down by pain and a fear that tasted like copper on her tongue. "Please," she managed, her voice breaking. "I just need to get to the birthing den. Please, I—" "No den for cursed blood." Marcus stalked toward her, and the circle of pack members tightened like a noose. "The prophecy speaks of a silver-eyed wolf born under the full moon to a mateless mother. A child who will either unite the packs or destroy them all." His lips curled back, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp in the firelight. "Your bastard child will not bring destruction to this pack." "You don't know what she'll be," Nalani gasped, another contraction stealing her breath. She'd known the prophecy, had heard the whispers when her pregnancy began to show, but she'd convinced herself that her child would be normal, that the old stories were just that. Stories meant to frighten pups. "Please, Marcus. Please, I've served this pack my whole life. You've been nothing but a burden." The words came from Kira, the friend who'd stepped away. "Weak wolf. Weak bloodline. We should have driven you out long before you spread your legs for a rogue who didn't even stay to see what he created." The cruelty of it struck harder than any physical blow. Nalani had been the weakest of her generation. Yes, always struggling to shift, always last in hunts, always overlooked and barely tolerated. And when Damon had come through their territory, charming and wild and interested in her, finally, someone had seen her. She'd believed it meant something. She'd given him everything during those 3 passionate weeks. Then he'd disappeared like morning mist, leaving her with nothing but a growing belly and the pack's contempt. "Take her to the border," Marcus commanded. "Let the wilderness have her and her cursed whelp." "No!" Nalani tried to rise, but rough hands gripped her arms, hauling her upright even as her body screamed in protest. "No, please. I need help. The baby is coming, please." Thunder cracked overhead, perfectly timed as if the sky itself had joined in the pack's judgment. The storm that had been threatening all evening finally broke, rain beginning to fall in heavy, cold drops that soaked through Nalani's ceremonial dress within seconds. 2 warriors dragged her from the clearing, her bare feet leaving furrows in the mud as she struggled. "You can't do this," she sobbed, though she knew they could. The pack law was absolute, and an alpha's or beta's word was binding. "She's innocent. Whatever you think she might be, she's innocent." Marcus followed behind, unmoved by her pleas. "If the prophecy is wrong, if your child is born with normal eyes, you may petition to return. But I will not risk this pack's survival on your weakness and a rogue's seed." They reached the border markers, ancient stones carved with territorial wards that hummed with generations of pack magic. Beyond them stretched the wilderness, hundreds of miles of untamed forest where rogues ran wild and darker things hunted under the full moon. The rain fell harder now, sheets of water that turned the world into a blurred nightmare. The warriors released her, stepping back across the border with synchronized precision. Nilani collapsed onto her hands and knees in the mud, another contraction seizing her with such force that she couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but endure. "If you survive," Marcus said, his voice barely audible over the storm, "if the child lives and proves to be normal, we may show mercy. But mark my words, Nilani, I will not allow a silver-eyed abomination to threaten everything we've built." Then they were gone, melting back into the forest with the ease of wolves on their own territory, leaving her alone at the border as lightning split the sky. Nilani didn't know how long she stayed there, curled around her contracting belly, rain washing away her tears as quickly as they fell. Time became meaningless, measured only in waves of pain that grew closer together, more intense, until her wolf finally surged forward with a desperate, primal need: shelter. Find shelter. Protect the pup. She crawled at first, unable to stand, her hands sinking into mud and leaves as she moved deeper into the wilderness. Every instinct screamed that she was going the wrong direction, that safety lay behind her with the pack. But there was no safety there anymore. She'd been cast out, abandoned, left to die. But she wouldn't. She couldn't. Not when her daughter needed her. The thought gave her strength enough to stand, to stumble forward through undergrowth that tore at her skin and dress. Lightning illuminated her path in irregular flashes, revealing twisted trees and jutting rocks that all looked the same in the darkness. She had no idea where she was going, only that she had to keep moving, had to find somewhere out of the rain before. Another contraction, the strongest yet, brought her to her knees with a cry that was more wolf than human. Her water broke in a warm rush that the rain immediately washed away. She was running out of time. Through the next flash of lightning, she saw it, a dark opening in a rocky outcropping, just large enough to be called a cave. Nilani didn't think, didn't consider what might already be sheltering there. She simply moved, crawling the last several yards until she was inside, out of the rain at last. The cave was shallow but dry, the floor covered in a thick layer of old leaves and pine needles. It smelled of earth and stone, blessedly empty of any predator's musk. Nilani collapsed onto her side, her body taking over as the need to push became overwhelming. She'd never felt so alone in her life. There was no pack midwife to guide her, no female relatives to offer encouragement, no mate to hold her hand and tell her she was strong enough for this. Just Nilani, the weak wolf who'd never been good enough, about to give birth by herself in a cave in the wilderness. "I can do this," she whispered to herself, to her wolf, to the baby who was coming whether she was ready or not. "I can do this. I can do this." The labor consumed her. Hours passed in a blur of pain and pushing, of primal sounds torn from her throat that echoed off the cave walls. The storm raged outside, thunder and lightning creating a violent symphony that matched the battle her body was waging. She lost all sense of time, all sense of anything beyond the singular focus of bringing her daughter into the world. And then, just as lightning struck somewhere terrifyingly close, the baby emerged in a final rush of blood and fluid. Nilani's hands shook as she reached down, gathering the tiny, slippery body to her chest. The baby wasn't crying. Oh gods, she wasn't crying. Panic gave Nilani strength she didn't know she had left, and she wiped the baby's face with trembling fingers, clearing away the birth matter from her nose and mouth. "Please," she sobbed. "Please, please, please." The baby gasped, then let out a thin, warbling cry that was the most beautiful sound Nilani had ever heard. "There you are," Nilani whispered, tears streaming down her face as she cradled her daughter close, using the remnants of her dress to clean her and keep her warm. "There you are, my little one. I've got you. Mama's got you. The baby's cries strengthened, and Nalani helped her latch, marveling at the fierce determination in such a tiny being. She was perfect. Absolutely perfect, with a downy covering of dark hair and miniature fists that gripped at nothing and everything. In the chaos of birth, Nalani hadn't thought to check, hadn't dared to look. But now, as another flash of lightning illuminated the cave, the baby's eyes opened. Silver. Brilliant, unmistakable silver that seemed to capture and reflect the lightning itself. Nalani's heart stopped, then started again with a painful lurch. The prophecy. The curse. Everything Marcus had feared, staring up at her from her daughter's innocent face. No, she breathed, though she didn't know if she was denying the color of those eyes or the fate they represented. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they said. You're mine, and I love you, and I will protect you with everything I am. As if in response, the baby's eyes fluttered closed, her feeding becoming more relaxed as exhaustion overtook her fear. Nalani held her close, feeling the rapid butterfly beat of her daughter's heart against her chest. She should name her. Despite everything, despite the prophecy and the danger those silver eyes represented, her daughter deserved a name. Luna, Nalani whispered, testing the word. My little Luna. It felt right, perfect even, for a child born under the full moon with eyes like liquid silver. The storm began to ease as dawn approached, the rain falling to a gentle patter and the thunder rolling away into the distance. Nalani tried to stay awake, tried to keep watch over her vulnerable baby, but blood loss and exhaustion pulled at her with irresistible force. She arranged herself carefully, Luna tucked against her body where she'd be warm and safe, Nalani's arms wrapped protectively around her even as consciousness began to slip away. The last thing she heard before darkness took her was the sound of footsteps approaching the cave. Nalani's wolf surged forward despite her exhaustion, a snarl building in her throat even though she could barely lift her head. She curled tighter around Luna, prepared to fight to her last breath if necessary. The footsteps stopped at the cave's entrance, and a shadow fell across the morning light that had begun to creep into their shelter. Easy, a voice said, deep and rich with an authority that made her wolf simultaneously want to bare her throat in submission and bristle in defiance. I mean you no harm. He stepped into the cave, and Nalani's breath caught. The man, no, the alpha, every line of his body screamed dominant wolf, was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell to his collar and eyes that seemed to shift between gold and amber in the dim light. He moved with predatory grace, each step deliberate and controlled, but his expression held something she hadn't expected. Concern. Please, Nalani managed, her voice hoarse from screaming through labor. Please don't hurt her. The alpha's gaze dropped to the baby in her arms and something flickered across his features. Surprise, recognition, something deeper that Nalani was too exhausted to interpret. When he looked back at her, his eyes had softened. I would never harm a child, he said quietly, moving closer with his hands visible, non-threatening. Or her mother. You're badly hurt. You need a healer. Stay back. Nalani tried to sound threatening, but even she could hear the weakness in her voice. She'd lost too much blood, her body too depleted from labor and the ordeal of crawling through the wilderness. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision. The alpha crouched a few feet away, maintaining distance despite the fact that they both knew he could overpower her easily if he chose. My name is Hunter, he said. I'm the alpha of the Shadow Peak Pack. You're in my territory. Nalani's heart sank. She'd stumbled into claimed territory while fleeing her pack's borders. That could mean anything from immediate execution to being held prisoner, depending on this alpha's temperament. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to trespass. Her voice broke. My pack. I can smell what happened. Hunter interrupted gently. Birth, fear, abandonment. His jaw tightened, anger flickering through his carefully controlled expression. What pack leaves a laboring female alone in a storm? The question sounded rhetorical, but the fury beneath it made Nalani's wolf respond with an unexpected flutter of something, not fear, something warmer, something that made her chest tighten and her breath catch. May I come closer? Hunter asked. You're still bleeding. The afterbirth? I know, Nalani said, feeling the warm wetness between her legs that meant she was still in danger. She knew the basics of birth from observation, knew that what should have come after the baby sometimes didn't come on its own, knew that bleeding too long could mean death. She should refuse, should maintain distance from this strange alpha, protect Luna from anyone who might see those silver eyes and make the same judgment her pack had made. But Luna needed her mother alive. Okay, she whispered. Hunter moved closer, his movements still careful and controlled. This close, Nalani could see the details she'd missed, the faint scars on his hands that spoke of countless battles. The silver thread woven through his dark hair at his temples, the way his eyes kept returning to her face with an intensity that made her skin flush despite her pain. I'm going to touch you now, he said softly, just to check the bleeding. His hands were gentle, far gentler than she'd expected from someone who radiated such lethal power. He examined her with clinical efficiency, though she noticed the way his jaw clenched when he saw the extent of the tearing and blood loss. The placenta is retained, he said. I need to help it deliver, or the bleeding won't stop. Nalani nodded, too weak to protest even if she'd wanted to. Hunter worked quickly, his touch sure but careful, and within moments she felt the release of pressure as her body finally expelled what it should have hours ago. He used strips torn from his own shirt to pack the worst of the wounds, then lifted his wrist to his mouth. What? Nalani started. Alpha blood accelerates healing, Hunter explained, biting his wrist until blood welled. It won't cure everything, but it will stop the worst of the bleeding and give you strength. You need it. He held his wrist to her lips, and Nalani's wolf surged forward with an intensity that shocked her. She latched onto his wrist without conscious thought, drinking deeply as warmth spread through her body. His blood tasted like lightning and winter wind and something indefinably right, something that made her wolf croon with satisfaction. The mate bond. The realization hit her at the same moment it clearly hit him. Hunter's eyes widened, gold bleeding into amber bleeding into something that glowed from within. The air between them seemed to shimmer, charged with a power that made Nalani's skin tingle and her wolf howl with recognition. You're... Hunter breathed, wonder transforming his features. You're my mate. Nalani released his wrist, panic flooding through her despite the way her body yearned to press closer to his. No, that's not... I can't... Easy, Hunter said again, though she could see the same shock reflected in his expression, the same overwhelming recognition. It's all right. We don't have to... He stopped, taking a breath. Right now, we focus on getting you and your daughter safe and healed. Everything else can wait. Luna chose that moment to whimper, her tiny face scrunching as she began to fuss. Hunter's gaze dropped to her, and Nalani watched with a mother's fierce protectiveness as he studied her daughter's features. Luna's eyes opened, silver bright even in the cave's dim light. Hunter went very still. Nalani held her breath, waiting for the same judgment that had gotten her exiled, waiting for him to denounce Luna as cursed or dangerous or wrong. Instead, he smiled. Silver eyes, he murmured, reaching out with one finger to stroke Luna's tiny hand. She gripped it immediately, her miniature fist barely able to wrap around his calloused fingertip. Remarkable. I've only seen that color once before, in the ancient histories. Your daughter is special. Special, Nalani repeated, the word catching in her throat. Not cursed, Not dangerous. Special. Very special, Hunter confirmed, his expression softening further as Luna cooed at him. And under my protection, along with her mother. No one will harm either of you, I swear it. The sincerity in his voice, the absolute authority, made something in Nilani's chest crack open. She'd been abandoned, cast out, left to die by people she'd known her entire life. And this stranger, this Alpha King she'd heard stories about, legendary for his strength and ruthlessness in battle, was offering protection to her and her silver-eyed daughter without hesitation. Why? She whispered. You don't know me. You don't know what the prophecy says about her. I know that you gave birth alone in a cave during a storm and survived. Hunter interrupted firmly. I know that you're my mate, which means the moon goddess herself has bound our fates. And I know that any prophecy about a child this young is meaningless. She'll become who she's meant to be through love and guidance, not through fear and judgment. Tears spilled down Nilani's cheeks. I don't even know if I can trust you. I know. Hunter's expression gentled. You have no reason to trust me, but I'm asking you to let me help anyway, because you need it and because... He stopped, something vulnerable flickering across his features. Because I've been searching for my mate for 10 years, and now that I've found you, I'm not going to let you bleed to death in a cave. Despite everything, Nilani felt a laugh bubble up. It came out more like a sob, but there was humor there too, the slightly hysterical kind born of exhaustion and relief and too many emotions to process. Okay, she said finally. Okay. Hunter's smile was like sunrise, warm and brilliant and full of promise. He shrugged out of his jacket. Expensive, well-made, probably worth more than anything Nilani had ever owned, and wrapped it carefully around her and Luna. Can you walk? He asked. Nilani tried to move and immediately knew the answer. No. Then I'll carry you. He scooped her up with breathtaking ease, cradling her and Luna together against his chest as if they weighed nothing. My fortress isn't far. We'll have you both warm and safe within the hour. As he carried them from the cave into the pale light of dawn, Nilani looked up at his profile. Strong jaw, focused gaze, the faint smile that lingered at the corners of his mouth as he glanced down at Luna. Her wolf hummed with contentment, with the rightness of being held by their mate, even as Nilani's human mind screamed warnings about trust and betrayal and the danger of hoping for anything good. But Luna was warm against her chest, alive and perfect, despite the prophecy that had condemned her. And Hunter's arms were strong and steady, carrying them both away from the wilderness that had nearly claimed their lives. For now, for this moment, that was enough. The morning sun filtering through the window of her private quarters should have brought Nilani comfort, but instead, it illuminated the gilt-edged bars of what felt increasingly like a beautiful cage. 2 weeks had passed since Hunter had carried her and Luna from that desperate cave. 2 weeks of recovery in rooms more luxurious than anything she'd ever experienced. 2 weeks of her body healing while her mind remained a battlefield of conflicting instincts. She sat in the cushioned chair near the window, Luna nursing contentedly at her breast, and tried not to think about how every fiber of her being hummed with awareness whenever Hunter was near. The mate bond had only grown stronger with proximity, pulling at her like a tide she couldn't resist. Her wolf wanted to accept it, wanted to surrender to the call of their fated mate, but Nilani's human mind remembered too well what it felt like to be abandoned. A soft knock at the door made her tense. She knew that knock now, had learned to recognize the particular rhythm of Hunter's knuckles against wood. "Come in," she called, adjusting her shawl to maintain modesty. Hunter entered carrying a wooden box, his presence seeming to fill the entire room despite the quarters being spacious. He wore simple clothes today, dark pants and a loose shirt, but the authority in his bearing was impossible to miss. His amber eyes found hers immediately, that now familiar warmth spreading through his expression before shifting to Luna. "How is she today?" he asked, setting the box on the side table. "Growing stronger," Nilani said, unable to keep the pride from her voice. Luna was thriving, her silver eyes bright and alert, her tiny body filling out with healthy weight. She smiled this morning. A real smile, not just gas. Hunter's answering grin transformed his features from intimidating to devastating. "May I?" He gestured toward the chair beside hers. Nilani nodded, her heart rate picking up as he settled close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Close enough that his scent, pine and winter wind and something uniquely him, wrapped around her like an embrace. "I brought something," Hunter said, opening the wooden box to reveal a delicate silver rattle shaped like a crescent moon. "It was my mother's. She kept it from when I was a pup." He lifted it carefully, the silver catching the light. "I thought Luna might like it." Nilani's throat tightened. "Hunter, that's too precious. It's a family heirloom." "Yes," he agreed simply, his gaze meeting hers with an intensity that stole her breath. "And Luna is family." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Luna wasn't his blood, wasn't his daughter, but he was claiming her anyway, claiming them both, if Nilani would let him. "Thank you," she whispered, accepting the rattle. Luna had finished nursing, and Nilani shifted her to her shoulder for burping, the movement practiced now. "She's too young to hold it yet, but I'll keep it for her." "There's no rush." Hunter's finger traced the edge of Luna's tiny ear, his touch feather light. The baby turned her head toward him, those remarkable silver eyes fixing on his face with what seemed like recognition. "She knows me now, knows my scent." "She does," Nilani admitted. Hunter had visited every day, sometimes multiple times, always bringing small gifts or simply sitting with them. He'd held Luna while Nilani bathed, had walked the floors with her during midnight crying fits, had proven himself patient and gentle and utterly devoted to a child that wasn't his. It was terrifying how much Nilani was beginning to depend on him. "Nilani," Hunter said softly, his hand moving from Luna to rest on the arm of Nilani's chair, close enough to touch her but not quite making contact. "I need to tell you something." The seriousness in his tone made her wolf prick her ears. "What is it?" "There's going to be a pack gathering tonight." "The full pack, not just the inner circle." His jaw tightened. "Word has spread about you and Luna, about the prophecy. My people need to see that you're both under my protection, and I need to make that protection explicit and public." Fear spiked through Nilani's chest. "They know about the prophecy?" "Prophecies have a way of traveling," Hunter said grimly, "especially ones about silver-eyed wolves. But that's not what worries me most." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "There are those who will question my decision to shelter you. Some out of genuine concern for the pack's safety. Others out of—" He trailed off. "Jealousy?" Nilani supplied quietly. Hunter's expression confirmed it. "I've been alpha for 12 years. In that time, many have hoped to become my mate, my queen. The appearance of a fated mate, particularly one from outside the pack, with a prophesied child, has caused unrest." Nilani looked down at Luna, who had fallen asleep against her shoulder, tiny fist curled against Nilani's collarbone. "Maybe it would be better if we left. I'm healed enough now, I could—" "No." The word came out harder than Hunter probably intended, because he immediately softened his tone. "No, you're not leaving. You're my mate, Nilani, even if you haven't accepted the bond yet. And Luna is an innocent child who deserves protection and love, not exile and fear. I won't send you away because some of my pack can't see past superstition. But if my presence causes division, then I'll handle the division," Hunter interrupted firmly. That's what an alpha does. I protect my own, and you and Luna are mine to protect, whether the pack likes it or not. The possessiveness in his voice should have alarmed her. Instead, it made her wolf purr with satisfaction, made warmth pool in her belly despite her best efforts to remain detached. Will you come tonight? Hunter asked. To the gathering? I know it's a lot to ask, but seeing you there, seeing Luna thriving, it will help counter the rumors. Everything in Nilani wanted to refuse, wanted to hide in these safe quarters where she didn't have to face the judgment of an entire pack. But she'd already been cast out once for cowardice, already failed to stand up for herself and her daughter. She wouldn't make that mistake again. I'll come, she said, meeting Hunter's gaze steadily. But Hunter, if this becomes dangerous for Luna, if the pack truly turns against her, they won't, he promised. I won't let them. His certainty should have been reassuring. Instead, it made Nilani wonder what price Hunter would pay for his protection, and whether she could live with herself for letting him pay it. The great hall of the Shadow Peak Fortress was massive, its ceiling soaring 30 feet overhead with rough-hewn beams that spoke of ancient construction. Torches lined the stone walls, casting dancing shadows across the gathered wolves who numbered easily over 200. Nilani stood at the edge of the crowd with Luna bundled against her chest in a carrying sling, trying to make herself small despite knowing that every eye in the room had already marked her presence. The whispers started immediately. That's her? The child has silver eyes, I heard. Prophecy says destruction. Our alpha's mate, can you believe? Nilani kept her chin up, kept her expression neutral even as her wolf bristled at the judgment in those whispered words. She'd dressed carefully for this, borrowing a simple but well-made dress from the pack's stores that Hunter had provided, her dark hair braided and pinned in a style that was both practical and elegant. Luna slept peacefully against her heart, unaware of the tension crackling through the air. A hand touched her elbow and Nilani nearly jumped. The woman who'd approached was tall and striking, with honey blonde hair and sharp green eyes that assessed Nilani with undisguised interest. You must be Nilani, the woman said, her voice carrying a melodic quality that somehow made it no less dangerous. I'm Iris, Hunter's beta, second in command of the pack. Nilani recognized the possessiveness in how Iris said hunters, the subtle claim that went beyond mere pack hierarchy. This was a woman who'd hoped to be more than beta. It's nice to meet you, Nilani said carefully. Is it? Iris's smile didn't reach her eyes. I suppose we'll see. Hunter has asked me to make you feel welcome, so let me be the first to extend the pack's hospitality. The pause before the last word was deliberate, loaded with irony. Before Nilani could respond, drums began to beat, a deep, resonant sound that silenced the crowd immediately. Hunter appeared at the far end of the hall, striding toward the raised platform where the Alpha's chair sat like a throne. He wore formal pack regalia now, black leather and silver chains that marked his status. His hair pulled back to reveal the strong lines of his face. He looked every inch the Alpha King that legend spoke of. Hunter took his position on the platform, his gaze sweeping across his assembled pack before landing on Nilani. Even from this distance, she felt the connection between them pull taut, felt her wolf respond with a surge of longing that made her breath catch. My pack, Hunter began, his voice carrying effortlessly across the hall. I've called this gathering to address the rumors that have been circulating, to address them with truth, rather than letting speculation fester into fear. The crowd shifted, some leaning forward with interest, others crossing their arms defensively. 2 weeks ago, I discovered a female giving birth alone in our territory, Hunter continued. She'd been cast out by her pack during labor, left to die in a storm because they feared a prophecy about her child. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Nilani felt dozens of gazes turn toward her, assessing, judging. That female is Nilani, and she is my fated mate, Hunter declared, the words ringing with absolute authority. The moon goddess herself has bound our fates, and I will not dishonor that gift by questioning her wisdom. The murmurs grew louder. Nilani saw shock on some faces, anger on others, and on Iris's face. Standing just a few feet away, something that looked like barely suppressed rage. The child, Luna, was born with silver eyes. Hunter continued, acknowledging the elephant in the room head-on. Yes, there are prophecies about such children, but I remind you all of something crucial. Prophecies speak of potential, not destiny. They describe what might be, not what must be. An elderly man stepped forward from the crowd, his gray hair marking him as an elder. Alpha, with respect, the prophecy of the silver-eyed wolf is specific. It says such a child will either unite all packs or destroy them. That's not a potential we can ignore. Elder Thomas? Hunter acknowledged with a nod. You're right that we can't ignore it. But tell me, how do we prevent destruction? By killing an infant? By casting out a mother and child and hoping they die in the wilderness? His voice hardened. That's not pack justice. That's murder born of fear. But if the prophecy? Another voice called out. If the prophecy speaks truth, then Luna will grow to unite or destroy based on how she's raised. Hunter interrupted. Based on whether she's shown love and guidance or fear and hatred. I choose to believe that raising her with compassion in a strong pack will guide her toward unity rather than destruction. And if you're wrong? Iris asked, her voice carrying clearly. If the prophecy means destruction regardless of upbringing, you'd risk the entire pack for one child? Hunter's gaze locked on his beta, and Nilani saw something dangerous flash through his expression. I would risk everything for those under my protection. That's what it means to be alpha. And let me be absolutely clear. He raised his voice, addressing the entire hall now. Nilani and Luna are under my personal protection. They are pack. Anyone who threatens them in word or deed will answer to me personally, not as their alpha, but as their mate and guardian. Is that understood? The silence that followed was deafening. Nilani's heart hammered in her chest, Luna stirring against her as if sensing her mother's anxiety. This was too much, too public, too dangerous. Hunter was putting his entire authority on the line for her and Luna, drawing a line that could fracture his pack. Elder Thomas stepped forward again. Alpha, none question your authority or your judgment, but we ask that you consider carefully. The Purists have been growing in strength across the territories. They target anyone they consider a threat to wolf purity, mixed bloodlines, those with unusual gifts, and yes, those born under prophecy. If word reaches them about the child, let them come, Hunter said flatly. Any purist who sets foot in my territory will not leave it alive. The promise in his voice was absolute, and Nilani saw several pack members exchange glances, some approving, others worried. She understood their concern. Hunter was declaring war on a dangerous faction to protect her daughter. The gathering is concluded, Hunter announced. Return to your duties and your homes, and remember my words tonight. As the crowd began to disperse, Nilani found herself rooted in place, watching as Hunter descended from the platform and began making his way toward her through the thinning crowd. Iris intercepted him, her hand on his arm, her body language proprietary as she spoke in low tones. Hunter listened, but his gaze remained fixed on Nilani. Finally, he extracted himself from Iris's grip and crossed to Nilani's side. That was, Nilani started. Necessary, Hunter finished. Are you all right? You just declared war for us, Nilani said quietly. Against the Purists, against anyone in your pack who disagrees with you. Hunter, that's my choice, he interrupted gently. My responsibility as alpha and as your mate. Come, let's get you and Luna back to your quarters. You've endured enough scrutiny for one night. He placed a hand on the small of her back, guiding her through the hall. Nalani was acutely aware of the stares that followed them, of Iris's sharp gaze tracking their exit, of the whispered conversations that resumed the moment they passed. As they climbed the stairs toward the residential wing, Luna began to fuss. Nalani tried to soothe her, but the baby's cries grew more insistent, her tiny face scrunching with discomfort. "She's probably hungry again," Nalani said apologetically. "Her feeding schedule has been irregular." "Here." Hunter opened a door Nalani didn't recognize, not her quarters, but somewhere else in the fortress. "We can stop in my study, it's private and closer." The room he led her into was intimate and masculine, with leather furniture and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, and the windows overlooked the moonlit forest beyond the fortress walls. Hunter gestured to a comfortable chair, then moved to light the fire, giving Nalani privacy to settle Luna and begin nursing. Once the baby was latched and feeding peacefully, Hunter returned to sit across from her, his elbows on his knees, his expression weary in a way she hadn't seen before. "You don't have to do this," Nalani said softly. "Luna and we're not worth fracturing your pack." Hunter's head snapped up, his eyes blazing. Don't say that you're not worth it." "But, Nalani, I've been alpha of this pack for 12 years. Do you know what I've been doing for the last decade?" He stood, moving to the window, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the moonlight. "Searching. Every month at the full moon, I'd go into the wilderness and run the borders, hoping, praying, that I'd catch the scent of my mate." Nalani's breath caught. "Other alphas have taken chosen mates, built families, strengthened their packs through political alliances," Hunter continued, his voice rough with emotion. "But I couldn't. I couldn't settle for anything less than what the moon goddess promised. Couldn't give my heart to someone it didn't belong to." 10 years, Nalani whispered. 10 years, Hunter confirmed, turning to face her. 10 years of searching, of being alone, of watching my pack worry that their alpha would never produce an heir, never form the bond that would strengthen our territory. And then I found you, bleeding and exhausted and fiercely protecting your child despite being on the edge of death. I found you, and every year of waiting suddenly made sense." The vulnerability in his expression made Nalani's chest ache. This powerful alpha, this legendary warrior, standing before her with his heart completely exposed. "I was in the wilderness that morning because it was the full moon," Hunter said. "Because I hadn't given up hope, even after a decade. Because something told me that if I kept searching, I'd find what I'd been missing." He moved closer, crouching beside her chair so they were eye level. "You weren't a burden I stumbled across, Nalani. You were the answer I'd been seeking." Luna had fallen asleep at Nalani's breast, milk-drunk and content. Nalani carefully adjusted her clothing, then reached out with her free hand to touch Hunter's face, her fingers trembling as they traced his jaw. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I'm so scared of trusting this, of trusting you, because everyone I've ever trusted has—" "I know," Hunter said, covering her hand with his, pressing it more firmly against his face. "I know you're scared. You have every reason to be. But Nalani," his eyes burned with intensity, "I will spend every day for the rest of my life proving that I'm not them. That I won't abandon you, won't betray you, won't let you down. Even if you never fully accept the mate bond, even if you only ever see me as Luna's protector, I will still be here." The sincerity in his words, the absolute conviction, cracked something open inside Nalani's chest. She leaned forward, drawn by instinct and need, and something deeper than conscious thought, her lips a breath away from his. Then Luna whimpered in her sleep, a small sound that nonetheless shattered the moment. Nalani pulled back, her heart racing, her wolf howling in protest at the retreat. "I should—" she started. "Yes," Hunter agreed, though the heat in his gaze suggested he wanted anything but to let her go. You should rest. Both of you. He helped her stand, his hand steady at her elbow as he guided them back through the corridors to her quarters. At her door, he paused. Nilani. Yes? Thank you, he said simply, for coming tonight, for standing beside me in front of the pack, for trusting me even a little bit. Before she could respond, he pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, then another to the top of Luna's sleeping head. Sleep well, he murmured. I'll have extra guards posted in this corridor tonight. As Nilani closed the door behind her, she leaned against it, her heart still racing from their near kiss, her mind replaying his words about searching for her for a decade. Luna sighed in her sleep, tiny fingers curling against Nilani's shoulder, and for the first time since being cast out, Nilani let herself wonder if maybe, just maybe, she'd found not just safety, but home. She didn't know yet that the real danger was only beginning, that Marcus had already contacted the regional council, or that someone in the fortress, someone Nilani had started to trust, was secretly sending messages to the purists about the exact location of the silver-eyed child. For tonight she simply held her daughter close and let herself imagine a future that included the Alpha King who'd promised to wait for her heart. The messenger arrived at dawn 3 days after the pack gathering, his haggard appearance and trembling hands speaking to the urgency of his news. Hunter received him in the council chamber with Nilani present, something that had already raised eyebrows among his advisors, but he'd insisted she had a right to know anything that concerned Luna. The young wolf knelt, his head bowed. Alpha King, I bring demands from the Regional Wolf Council. He swallowed hard. They require the surrender of the silver-eyed child for assessment and judgment. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Nilani clutched Luna tighter, her wolf surging forward with a snarl that rumbled in her chest even in human form. On whose authority? Hunter's voice was deadly calm, which somehow made it more terrifying than if he'd shouted. Beta Marcus of the Rivermoon Pack has filed a formal complaint with the council. The messenger continued, still not looking up. He claims that Nilani stole the child from rightful pack custody, and that the prophecy regarding the silver-eyed wolf requires council intervention for the safety of all territories. Liar, Nilani hissed. They cast me out. They left me to die. I believe you, Hunter said, his hand finding hers, squeezing gently. To the messenger, he said, tell the council that I deny their demand. Luna is under my protection as Alpha of the Shadow Peak Pack, and no external authority supersedes that within my territory. Elder Thomas cleared his throat. Alpha, with respect, denying the regional council is a serious matter. They have the authority to make requests, not demands, Hunter interrupted. And I have the authority to refuse requests that would endanger those under my protection. But if Marcus has support from other packs, Thomas pressed, if this becomes a council mandate rather than a request, then we'll deal with it when it comes to that, Hunter said firmly. Messenger, you may return to the council with my refusal. Tell them that if they wish to discuss Luna's future, they may send official representatives to speak with me directly. But the child remains here, safe with her mother, under my protection. The messenger bowed lower. As you command. Alpha King! After he left, the council chamber erupted into heated discussion. Iris stood, her expression carefully neutral, but her eyes sharp. Alpha, this puts us in a precarious political position if the council perceives this as defiance. Let them perceive it however they wish. Hunter cut her off. I won't hand over an infant to be assessed by wolves who've already decided she's dangerous based on nothing but eye color and superstition. But the prophecy, another council member began. The prophecy is words, not fact, Hunter said, his patience clearly wearing thin. I've made my decision. This council's role is to advise me, and I've heard your advice. Now I ask for your support in protecting what's ours." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Nilani felt like she couldn't breathe, Luna's weight against her chest the only thing keeping her grounded. This was her fault. All of this, the political danger, the conflict with the council, the stress on Hunter's pack, was because of her and Luna. The council members filed out one by one, some clearly supportive, others less certain. Iris was the last to leave, her gaze lingering on Nilani with something unreadable in her expression. "You should have given her up," Iris said quietly, so only Nilani could hear. "For everyone's sake." Then she was gone, leaving Nilani staring after her with ice in her veins. Hunter approached, his hand gentle on her shoulder. "Don't listen to her. Iris is protective of the pack, sometimes to the point of ruthlessness." "She's right, though," Nilani said. "This would all be easier if I just—" "Don't finish that sentence," Hunter warned. "You're not going anywhere, and neither is Luna. We'll face whatever comes together." But Nilani saw the strain in his expression, the weight of leadership pressing down on him as he calculated how many enemies he could afford to make for their sake. That night, as Nilani prepared Luna for bed in the nursery Hunter had set up in her quarters, she heard it, a whisper of sound that her wolf recognized as wrong. She froze, every instinct screaming danger. The window. Someone was at the window, 3 stories up. Nilani moved with speed she didn't know she possessed, snatching Luna from the changing table and backing toward the door. The window opened silently, too silently, the hinges oiled, the motion practiced. A figure slipped through, dressed in dark clothes, face covered. "Help!" Nilani screamed, her voice carrying through the corridor. "Hunter!" The intruder lunged. Nilani twisted, protecting Luna with her body, feeling claws rake across her back instead of reaching her daughter. Pain exploded through her, but her wolf surged forward, giving her strength. She kicked out, connecting with the intruder's knee, heard a satisfying crunch. The door burst open. Hunter was there, moving like violence incarnated, his wolf so close to the surface that his eyes glowed gold and his canines had extended. He caught the intruder by the throat, slamming them against the wall with enough force to crack stone. "Who sent you?" Hunter snarled. The intruder said nothing, but their hand moved, reaching for something at their belt. Hunter caught their wrist, twisted, and a small vial fell to the floor, shattering. The scent that rose from it was acrid, poisonous. "Wolfsbane," Hunter breathed, concentrated. This wasn't meant to capture, it was meant to kill. The intruder jerked in his grip, and Nilani saw too late what they were doing. Biting down. On something in their own mouth. "No." Hunter tried to pry their jaw open, but it was too late. Foam bubbled from the intruder's lips, and their body went rigid, then limp. "Suicide capsule," Hunter said grimly, lowering the corpse to the floor. "Professional. This was planned." Guards flooded into the room. Elder Thomas appeared, his face pale. Iris was there too, her expression shocked in a way that looked almost genuine. "Everyone out," Hunter commanded. "Secure this floor. No one enters or leaves without my express permission." He turned to Nilani, who was still clutching Luna, blood dripping from the wounds on her back. "Let me see." "I'm fine," Nilani insisted, but Hunter was already examining the claw marks, his jaw clenching when he saw how deep they went. "You need the healer. Now." He called for Sage, then carefully took Luna from Nilani's arms. "I've got her. She's safe." Nilani wanted to protest, wanted to keep Luna close, but the adrenaline was wearing off, and pain was taking its place. She sagged against Hunter, who supported her easily while still cradling Luna in his other arm. "I've got you both," he murmured. "You're safe now. I promise." But as Sage arrived to tend Nilani's wounds, and Hunter stood guard with Luna sleeping peacefully against his chest, they all knew the truth. Someone inside the fortress had let that assassin in. Someone they trusted was a traitor. And until they found out who, no promise of safety could be complete. Hunter's voice, when he spoke again, held a note of deadly promise. Find them. Whoever helped that assassin enter this fortress, whoever gave them access, find them. And when you do, bring them to me alive. I want to know exactly who's been betraying us. Nilani met his gaze across the room as Sage worked on her back, and saw in his golden eyes the transformation from protective alpha to the king, who'd earned his legendary reputation through ruthlessness as much as strength. The message was clear. Anyone who threatened his mate and her child would face a wrath that would make them wish the traitor's suicide capsule had been their own fate. The war for Luna's survival had truly begun. And this time, Nilani swore she wouldn't be passive prey. She would fight. For her daughter, for the future Hunter was offering them, and for the right to choose her own destiny rather than let prophecy or politics dictate it. Even if it meant embracing the mate bond she'd been so afraid to accept, because she was beginning to realize that strength wasn't something you had to possess alone. Sometimes strength was found in the bond between two wolves who'd been searching for each other across time and distance, finally united when it mattered most. The silence in Nilani's quarters screamed louder than any alarm. Hunter stood in the doorway, his enhanced senses cataloging every detail with the precision of a predator who knew. Something was catastrophically wrong. The chair by the window sat at an odd angle, cushions disturbed. Luna's blanket lay crumpled on the floor near the door, not folded as Nilani always kept it. The air held traces of Nilani's fear scent, sharp and acrid, hours old but unmistakable. And there, on the small table beside the chair, lay the silver pendant he'd given her 3 days ago. Hunter's world tilted. The pendant was their signal, the one they'd agreed upon after the assassination attempt. If she ever needed to leave the fortress quickly, she'd wear it. If she left it behind, it meant one thing. She'd been taken against her will. No. The word came out as a growl that made the guards behind him step back. No, no, no. His wolf surged forward with a violence that cracked the doorframe under his grip. The rage that filled him was primal, absolute, the kind of fury that legends were built on. Someone had taken his mate. Someone had taken Luna. Someone had dared. Alpha! Rafe's voice cut through the red haze. His most loyal warrior appeared at his shoulder, face grim. The beta is requesting an audience. She says it's urgent. Iris. Hunter's lip curled back from his teeth. He'd suspected her involvement since the assassination attempt, had been watching her carefully, waiting for her to make a mistake. And now his mate was gone. Their daughter taken, and Iris wanted an audience. Bring her to the council chamber, Hunter commanded, his voice barely human. Now. He swept through the corridors with Rafe at his heels, pack members pressing themselves against walls to let him pass. The Alpha King's rage was a living thing, a pressure in the air that made lesser wolves whimper and bare their throats in submission. He didn't care. All he cared about was the mate bond in his chest, stretched taut and screaming, pulling him toward the wilderness where Nilani had been taken. Iris waited in the council chamber, her expression carefully composed, but Hunter saw the fear beneath it. Good. She should be afraid. Where is she? Hunter didn't bother with preamble. He crossed the space between them in 3 strides, his hand closing around Iris's throat, lifting her until her feet left the ground. Where is my mate? I can't breathe. Iris gasped, clawing at his hand. You'll breathe when I allow it. Hunter's eyes blazed gold, his wolf so close to the surface that fur rippled along his arms. You helped them. You've been feeding information to the purists since Nilani arrived. Don't bother denying it. I can smell the lie forming on your tongue. Iris's eyes widened, genuine terror flooding her features. Alpha, please. Tell me where they took her, and I'll make your death quick, Hunter said, his voice dropping to something soft and infinitely more dangerous. Refuse, and I'll let my wolf have you. Peace? Bye. Peace. The threat wasn't empty. His wolf howled for blood, for vengeance, for the right to tear apart anyone who dared touch what was theirs. Only the thin thread of Hunter's control motivated by the desperate need to find Nilani alive, kept him from shifting and ripping out Iris's throat. The Old Stone Quarry! Iris choked out. 20 miles northeast. That's where the purists have their compound. They promised they'd just assess the child, determine if the prophecy was true. You believed that? Hunter's laugh was bitter. Or did you simply not care what happened to an innocent baby because you were jealous? Tears streamed down Iris's face. I loved you. For 12 years I stood by your side, waiting, hoping you'd see me as more than just your beta. And then she appears, some weak omega with a bastard child. And suddenly, she's your entire world? She's my mate. Hunter released her, letting her crumple to the floor. The moon goddess chose her for me, not you. Your jealousy doesn't justify betrayal. He turned to Rafe and Zara, who'd entered during the confrontation. Take her to the cells, full silver restraints. She'll stand trial after I bring Nilani and Luna home. Alpha! Elder Thomas's voice came from the doorway. If you're planning what I think you're planning, you need to reconsider. The mate bond tracking ritual is forbidden for good reason. It could kill you. Then I'll die, Hunter said simply. But I won't abandon my mate to those bastards. Thomas's expression softened with something that might have been respect. At least let me help prepare the ritual properly. If you're going to risk your life, let's maximize your chances of survival. The ritual chamber beneath the fortress was ancient, carved from living rock by the Pax founders centuries ago. Symbols covered every surface, old magic that hummed with power that made Hunter's teeth ache. He stood in the center of a circular pattern, stripped to the waist, while Elder Thomas prepared the necessary components. This ritual was forbidden because it burns through your life force, Thomas explained, mixing herbs with his own blood in a stone bowl. You'll be tracking the mate bond directly, using it as a compass, but every moment you maintain the connection, it drains you. I understand. Hunter's jaw was set. Time was wasting. Every second that passed was another second Nilani and Luna were in danger. Do you? Thomas met his gaze. Because if you push too far, if you drain yourself too much, you won't just die. You'll take Nilani with you. The mate bond goes both ways. Your death will kill her too. Hunter's hands clenched into fists. Then I'll be careful. But I'm not leaving her there. Thomas nodded slowly, then began painting symbols on Hunter's chest with the blood mixture. Each mark burned like liquid fire, sinking into his skin, connecting to the mate bond that already existed. Hunter gritted his teeth against the pain, focused on the thread of awareness that connected him to Nilani. She was alive, terrified, hurting, but alive. And Luna, he could feel her too, a smaller pulse of life connected to them both through Nilani's fierce maternal bond. It's done, Thomas said, stepping back. The ritual is active. You should be able to feel the direction now. Hunter closed his eyes, letting his awareness sink into the bond. It pulled him northeast, exactly as Iris had said, but with more detail. He could sense distance, could almost taste Nilani's fear on his tongue. 20 miles. Maybe less. His eyes snapped open, glowing with alpha power amplified by the ritual. Rafe, Zara, gather our fastest warriors. We move now. They left the fortress as a hunting party of 12, all warriors who'd proven their loyalty beyond question. Hunter led them at a punishing pace through the wilderness, following the mate bond like a lifeline. The ritual burned in his chest, each moment draining his energy, but he pushed the weakness aside. He'd crawl the last mile on his knees if necessary. As they ran, Hunter felt his wolf emerging in a way it never had before. Usually, his human and wolf sides were distinct. He could shift between forms, could let his wolf's instincts guide him, but they remained separate. Now, driven by the mate bond and the desperate need to reach Nilani, the barriers between them dissolved. Power flooded through him, primal and unstoppable. His human form began to change even without a full shift, his senses sharpening beyond normal limits, his strength increasing, his alpha presence expanding until the very air around him seemed to shimmer with dominance. Alpha, Zara breathed, running beside him. Your eyes, they're not shifting back. Hunter didn't care. All that mattered was the pull in his chest, growing stronger as they closed the distance. He could feel Nilani's emotions now through the bond, terror giving way to determination, maternal protectiveness flaring into something fierce and primal. She was fighting. His mate was fighting. Hold on. He projected through the bond, not knowing if she could hear him but needing to try. I'm coming. Hold on. The stone quarry appeared ahead, its carved walls rising from the forest like broken teeth. Hunter could smell them now. Purists, dozens of them, their scents sharp with zealotry and blood. And underneath it all, Nilani's scent, beloved and precious, marked with pain and fear and something else. Power. Raw, awakening power. What was happening to her? The silver chains burned against Nilani's wrists, but she barely felt them anymore. Pain had become background noise, eclipsed by the terror of watching two purist guards approach her cell with their hands reaching for Luna. No. Nilani's voice came out as a snarl. You don't touch her. The child will be assessed, one guard said, his expression cold. Leader's orders. If she's truly the prophesied destroyer, she'll be eliminated before she can. Nilani moved before conscious thought, her body acting on pure maternal instinct. She lunged forward despite the chains, her teeth bared, and felt something inside her crack. Not break, crack, like ice splitting to release the raging river beneath. Her wolf, dormant and weak for her entire life, exploded to the surface with a force that shattered the silver chains like paper. The transformation was agony and ecstasy, her body reshaping itself as power she'd never known she possessed, flooded every cell. When she opened her eyes, the world looked different. Sharper, clearer, painted in shades her human eyes had never perceived. And she was strong. The guards stumbled backward, their faces slack with shock. Nilani looked down at her wolf form and understood their fear. Her fur bore silver markings that glowed with an inner light, patterns that swirled like moonlight on water. She'd never seen anything like it in her life. Neither had they, apparently. Silver Moon, one guard whispered. Impossible. That bloodline is extinct. Nilani didn't know what that meant and didn't care. Luna was crying, frightened by the commotion, and nothing would keep Nilani from her daughter. She lunged at the guards with newfound ferocity, her claws finding flesh, her teeth sinking into bone. They fell before her like wheat before a scythe. The cell door hung open, broken from her explosive transformation. Nilani shifted back to human form, easier now, instinctive, and scooped Luna into her arms. Her daughter's cries quieted immediately, tiny hands reaching for her mother's face. I've got you, Nilani whispered fiercely. Mama's got you. No one will ever take you from me. Footsteps thundered in the corridor. More guards, drawn by the sounds of fighting. Nilani ran in the opposite direction, clutching Luna to her chest, her bare feet slapping against cold stone. The compound was a maze of passages, each one looking the same, but her wolf guided her instinctively toward fresh air, toward escape. She burst into a courtyard just as Marcus stepped into her path. Going somewhere? The beta who'd condemned her smiled, cruel and confident. Behind him stood a dozen purist fighters and a man Nilani didn't recognize, older, with eyes that gleamed with fanatical certainty. Impressive display in the cells. I didn't know weak little Nilani had any power in her at all. Silver Moon bloodline, who would have guessed? Get out of my way, Nilani warned, backing toward the courtyard's far wall. Luna whimpered against her shoulder, sensing the danger. I don't think so. Marcus's smile widened. You see, killing the prophesied child is important. But killing the reawakened Silver Moon? That's going to make Silas and me legends. The older man, Silas, presumably the purest leader, nodded. The Silver Moon Wolves nearly destroyed all pack hierarchy with their radical ideas of equality and chosen mates over political alliances. We spent generations eliminating that bloodline. We won't allow it to resurface now. Nilani's wolf surged forward, lending her strength. She could fight, could defend herself and Luna better than she ever had before. But 12 trained fighters plus Marcus and Silas? Even with her newfound power, the odds were impossible. Unless the mate bond in her chest pulled tight, vibrating with proximity. Hunter. He was close, getting closer every second. She could feel his rage, his desperate determination, his absolute refusal to let her face this alone. Nilani lifted her head and howled. The sound that came from her throat was pure wolf, amplified by her Silver Moon heritage, carrying for miles with crystalline clarity. But more than that, it was a call specifically for her mate, traveling through the bond that connected them, a beacon that screamed, "Here, I'm here, come find me." Marcus's expression shifted from confidence to uncertainty. What? The compound's outer wall exploded inward. Hunter burst through the gap like a force of nature, his wolf form larger than any Nilani had seen, his fur rippling with power that made the air itself shimmer. Behind him came his warriors, fanning out to engage the purest fighters, but Nilani only had eyes for her mate. Their gazes locked across the courtyard. The mate bond between them flared so brightly that it became visible, silver and gold light that spiraled from Nilani's chest to Hunter's, connecting them with tangible proof of their connection. Hunter shifted to human form without breaking stride, his eyes blazing with that same gold and silver light. "You made a fatal mistake," he said to Marcus, his voice resonating with alpha command that made even Silas stumble. "You touched my mate. You took my daughter." "She's not your daughter," Marcus spat. "She's a bastard child of prophecy, and the Omega is—" He didn't get to finish. Hunter moved with supernatural speed, covering the distance between them in a heartbeat. But before he could reach Marcus, Nilani felt something extraordinary happen. The mate bond pulsed, and power flooded through it, not draining her, but filling her. Hunter's alpha strength flowing into her body and amplifying her own newfound abilities. Nilani gasped as the sensation overwhelmed her, silver light erupting from her skin. And she understood. This was what the mate bond could be between true mates. Not just emotional connection, but a conduit for shared power. She shifted to her wolf form in an explosion of silver fire, Luna safe in a hastily created sling against her chest that her wolf form accommodated instinctively. Together, she and Hunter launched themselves at their enemies with perfect synchronization, two halves of a whole fighting as one. Nilani's newfound strength combined with Hunter's legendary power created something unstoppable. They moved like water, like lightning, anticipating each other's movements without conscious thought. When Nilani engaged 3 fighters on the left, Hunter covered her right flank without needing to look. When Hunter drove Marcus backward, Nilani was there to cut off his escape. The purists fell back, their confidence crumbling in the face of something they'd never encountered. True mates fighting in perfect unity, their bond manifested as visible power that crackled between them. Marcus backed toward Silas, his expression desperate now. "Do something. Use the silver weapons, the blessed bullets." "It won't work," Silas breathed, his eyes wide with something that might have been awe despite his hatred. I've read about this in the ancient texts. True mate bonds can't be severed by conventional weapons. They're Luna, who'd been quiet throughout the chaos, suddenly began to glow. Silver light poured from her tiny form, pure and clear and impossibly powerful. It expanded outward in a wave that washed over the entire courtyard, and everywhere it touched, the purists froze. Not dead, but paralyzed, their bodies locked in place as if they'd been carved from stone. The light faded, leaving Luna blinking with normal-colored eyes, still silver, but no longer glowing. She cooed contentedly, completely unaware of what she'd just done. The prophecy. Elder Thomas's voice came from the breach in the wall. He'd followed with reinforcements, his expression one of understanding. Luna isn't a destroyer, she's a unifier. Her power doesn't harm, it stops conflict. She forces peace. Nilani shifted back to human form, cradling Luna protectively. Hunter moved to her side immediately, wrapping his arms around them both, his body shaking with relief and residual rage. "It's over," he murmured against her hair. "You're safe. You're both safe." Nilani looked at Marcus, frozen mid-step, his face locked in an expression of hatred. Then at Silas, similarly paralyzed. Around the courtyard, the purists stood like statues, alive but helpless. "What do we do with them?" she asked. Hunter's expression hardened. "Justice. The regional council will see proof of their crimes, their attempted murder of an innocent child, their betrayal of pack law." His voice carried alpha command that made even the paralyzed purists shudder. "They'll spend the rest of their lives in silver cages remembering the child they tried to kill." Around them, Hunter's warriors finished securing the compound. Rafe approached, his expression respectful. "Alpha, the rest of the purists are surrendering. Without their leaders, they're lost." "Take them into custody," Hunter ordered. "Every single one. No one who participated in this walks away." But Nilani barely heard him. She was focused on the mate bond, still glowing between them, still pulsing with shared power. Luna dozed against her chest, exhausted from her display of power, and Hunter stood beside her, his hand on her back, his presence solid and unwavering. She'd been so afraid to accept this bond, so terrified of trusting someone enough to complete it. But standing here, having just fought side by side with her mate, having felt their power amplify through their connection, she finally understood what she'd been running from. Not weakness, strength. The strength that came from choosing to trust, to love, to bond with someone who would fight through hell itself to reach her. "Hunter," she said softly. He turned to her, and the vulnerability in his expression stole her breath. Despite everything, the battle, the victory, the power still crackling around them, he looked at her like she might still run. "I accept," Nilani whispered. "The mate bond. You. All of it. I accept." Hunter's eyes widened. "Nilani, you don't have to decide now. After everything you've been through—" "I'm deciding now," she interrupted firmly. "Because I'm not afraid anymore. Because you came for me, just like you promised. Because you see Luna not as a prophecy, but as my daughter. As our daughter. Because when I howled, you answered." Her voice broke. "I accept you, Hunter. I accept our bond. I accept this life you're offering us." Hunter pulled her close, careful of Luna between them, and claimed her mouth in a kiss that sent the mate bond blazing like a supernova. Nilani felt the connection complete, felt something fundamental shift in her soul as their bond solidified, becoming unbreakable. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she saw the matching mark appearing on Hunter's neck. A silver crescent moon that matched the gold sunburst now visible on hers. Marked. Mated. Bonded forever. Luna chose that moment to wake fully, her silver eyes blinking up at them both. She reached one tiny hand toward Hunter, and he took it gently, his expression transforming with wonder. "Hello, little one," he murmured. "Hello, daughter." And in that moment, standing in the ruins of the purest compound with their enemies defeated and their bond complete, Nilani finally understood what home felt like. Not a place, not a pack, but the two souls standing with her, their hearts beating in rhythm with hers, their strength combined with hers, their future stretching ahead bright with possibility. The prophecy hadn't been about destruction at all. It had been about this, about new beginnings, about bonds that transcended old prejudices, about love powerful enough to change the world. 3 months later, Nilani stood on the balcony of the Shadow Peak Fortress, watching the sun rise over the territory she now called home. Luna slept in a cradle nearby, her silver eyes closed in peaceful dreams, no longer a curse but a gift that had already begun attracting wolves from across the territories, seeking the unity she represented. Behind her, the door opened and Hunter emerged, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her back against his chest. "Couldn't sleep?" he murmured against her ear. "Too excited," Nilani admitted. "The coronation tonight? The council's formal apology? Your pack finally accepting us completely. It's overwhelming." "Good overwhelming or bad overwhelming?" "Definitely good." She turned in his arms, smiling up at her mate, her alpha king, her everything. "Though I have news that might make it even more overwhelming." Hunter's eyebrows rose. "What kind of news?" Nilani took his hand and placed it on her belly, watching as understanding dawned in his eyes. "The kind where Luna is going to be a big sister in about 8 months." The joy that flooded Hunter's features was incandescent. He dropped to his knees, pressing his forehead against her stomach, his hands reverent on her hips. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for trusting me, for choosing me, for giving me this family I never thought I'd have." "You saved us," Nilani said, threading her fingers through his hair. "That morning in the cave, you saved my life and Luna's. You gave us a home, protection, love, everything I thought we'd lost forever." Hunter rose, cupping her face in his hands. "You saved me right back. I was searching for 10 years, becoming harder and colder with each passing moon. You reminded me what it meant to love, to protect, to hope." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "You were never weak, Nilani. You were exactly who you needed to be. Strong enough to survive alone, brave enough to trust again, fierce enough to awaken a bloodline everyone thought was extinct." "We saved each other then," Nilani whispered. "We did," Hunter agreed, then kissed her with the kind of passion that made her wolf purr with contentment. When they broke apart, Luna was stirring, her tiny coos drawing them to her cradle. Together, they lifted their daughter, Hunter cradling her with practiced ease while Nilani leaned against his shoulder. The silver moon was setting as the sun rose, painting the sky in colors that seemed impossible, silver and gold, perfectly balanced. "Ready for tonight?" Hunter asked. "For the coronation? For taking your place as queen?" Nilani looked at her mate, at her daughter, at the life they'd built from the ashes of her darkest moment. "I'm ready for anything, as long as we face it together." And as the dawn broke over the Shadow Peak territory, bathing them in light that seemed almost magical, Nilani knew with absolute certainty that she'd found not just safety, but destiny. Not just survival, but a love that would echo through generations. A love that had already begun changing the world, one silver-eyed miracle at a time.